Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 341, recorded live on June 21st. I'm your host Patrick. With me this week we have Geoff Hanna from DDOGamer.
Hello, DDO World, and thank you for having me back.
We're hoping to have Voodoo, but I can't seem to get a hold of him today, but maybe he'll join us later. This week's screenshot, Glitner has a bad day thanks to some spike in our 177th screenshot of the week. I've been there. That's been me on more than one occasion. It's a popular trap. I've actually talked about that trap on the show. It's in Vaughn 4, if you don't know where that is, to the right. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Sunday, June 29th. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. I said that already. And you can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we have some news about Update 21 Patch 1 and some updates on several upcoming changes that they are considering. And we're going to talk about some Druid builds. So we'll get started with the news. First thing to note, game servers and my account turbine.com will be offline on Monday from 6 to 11 Eastern in the morning. Forums will remain up, but players may not be able to log in. That is a system-wide maintenance that's affecting all of Turbine's games. They have an official airship guide, including a list of buffs. Are you enjoying your new airship there, Geoff?
I am. We still have the small one. We haven't upgraded it yet. But I love the button on the deck, the single one button. And every now and then I go below decks anyway, and it's just very cool. Very much like it.
Yeah, the only thing I don't really care about them, I think I mentioned this last week, is that you can't stick a cellar and a bank in a mailbox on the top deck.
That's true. You have to go in. And the stuff they have doesn't completely work all the way for the rebinder and stuff like that. My biggest grief with them is that you can't tell what each buff does specifically. It just says you've been buffed or something along those lines generically. Yeah. However, Cordovan just posted a detailed, here's every buff that you get from every amenity list.
Yeah, it's in that airship guide. He did that.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's really nice. And the binder thing doesn't really bother me because we haven't ever had a binder on the airship anyway. So.
Yeah, I know, but it'd be nice if we're going to have one that it works. That would be very cool. Yeah.
With some things that were not working, we had Update 22 Patch 1 released. Just some notable things. Airship hook point buttons and airship amenity placement and purchase panels can now only be used by guild leaders and officers.
Yeah.
Which I think there was an issue where anyone on the ship could do that, including guests, which could be a problem. It'd be nice if there was like a toggle button that the guild leader could pick to say that anyone in the guild could do that. But limiting it to leaders and officers is probably a good place to start.
Oh, I think so. People are spending real money on these astral shards and donating them to the guild, and even if the members are losing some flexibility, I'd rather have the accountability of knowing that if somebody made a mistake, that, well, it was me, Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
Someone can take that away from them.
Yeah.
Guild leader.
Right.
They fixed an issue that could cause amenities to become unpurchased when being replaced by a new amenity. That would be very nice, particularly the Astral Shard ones. And the Astral Shard airship prices have been lowered. If you bought an airship at the higher price before the update, you're supposed to contact in-game support for a refund.
Yeah.
So make sure you do that, because the big airship, that's like 1,500 shards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. A, that they lowered them, and B, that they're retroactively paying you back. I mean, you could argue that it's only fair that they do so, but nonetheless, they didn't have to, and they volunteered. I think it's all very good.
Yeah, they could have left the prices where they were, too.
They could have done that, too.
They have fixed most of the crafting problems, including Kenneth crafting deconstruction and the Altar of Epic Rituals and other upgrading systems. So that should all be working correctly now. And you're now supposed to be able to drag and drop ingredients into bags. It's supposed to function again. And also related, Litany of the Dead, kind of the whole Necro 4 area, tapestries, shields, and tome and other bags once again work correctly, allowing for proper flagging for the Accursed Ascension raid, which is probably more important because people like to run Litany for XP, more so than flagging. And then the stuck command is now on a 10-minute cooldown while they work to correct an issue that can cause players to become stuck in the Three Barrel Cove wilderness area. And yay. And then they also fixed the bag deposit box, so that feature is once again available. Other news. Ultimate points. In the coming months, Ultimate points, U-points, and Ultimate game cards will soon be retired. Ultimate game cards will no longer be redeemable after September 30th, and U-points will no longer be redeemable after October 31st. And if you want more details, you can go visit the ultimategamecard.com thing. While these payment methods codes will no longer be redeemable through our systems, Turbine will continue to offer and support a wide variety of alternate payment methods to complete purchases. Just a note, this is a U-points thing. This is not a Turbine thing.
Right.
U-points.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I went and checked the U-points the website, and it basically said that after 7 years, we're shutting doors, or something. That I think is what it was. But it's not something that Turbine, as far as I know, that Turbine is making a decision on. This is something that comes from U-points. So if you use those, use them.
Yeah, I never understood why people would buy those. I think they were more expensive, weren't they?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I think I knew that they existed in the sense that I have heard about them before, and they didn't sound completely unfamiliar. But I have no experience with them, and I never really paid attention to them, so I have no idea.
Okay, very good.
Let's see, some other news. Producer Malfunction is currently working on Lotro these days as the live producer. So if you're wondering what happened to him, that's where he is hanging out. He's still at Turbine. He's just not working on DDO at the moment. Heroic Sagas can only be run once, and this is working as intended. This was confirmed by, I think, Jerry. So if you're wondering why you can't run a Heroic Saga more than once, that's working as intended. You are allowed to run Epic Sagas as many times as you want. Let's see, the old style guild slots, which are still around. This is a legacy system, but basically the new augment system was intended to replace it, and that was like a year and a half ago. That was with Giant Hole, Epic Giant Hole, as I recall. So they are not intended to stack with the new guild bus. So if you want them to, tough luck. I don't know. Do you even use the old guild system still?
The original, our guild isn't big enough. You know, this was one of those where you had to have the 100 level guild, or whatever. Maybe not 100, but you had to have a pretty good level build to get a lot of use out of the large augments. The small ones and the medium ones, I had a couple of things, but it was such a hassle to continuously go buy new crystals for them. For the tiny little boost you got, it wasn't worthwhile to me. But the large ones could be pretty nice. If you'd invested a lot in one of the large ones, I can imagine this would be annoying to you.
Well, I think the big thing is that you could use them at low levels. Unlike the current augment system, you can't. They raise the level of the item, where these ones wouldn't. So you could find something really low level and slot something really nice in it. Regardless
Yeah, like 30 hit points, or there were some nice. If you had the guild for it, there were some really nice guild augments.
Yeah, I had a guy in our guild for a while that was really used that system. He was chain TRing, so he was always at low levels, and he'd show up with like a level 4 character and be like 400 hit points. Like, what the? Just ridiculous.
I think there's more than large guild augments going on with that one.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know what it was. I just remember there was a couple times where I'd show up and he had like 100 more hit points than I did. I'm like, what? You're a Sork. I'm a barbarian. What is going on here? But he knew what he's doing, and I don't TR that much. So, and usually when I TR, I don't save a lot of TR gear, so I'm just pulling whatever I'm using and just going with that. And woohoo! I find it a little more fun that way, personally. It's kind of that mix of the permadeath, what permadeath people or static groups use, where they're only kind of pulling using what they pull out of chests. I'll mostly do that, and then kind of augment it with a few things that maybe I know I need to get.
My style kind of changed over time. Originally, I was very meticulous about keeping, twink gear for when I was TRing. But after about Life 3 or 4, that got to be really, my bank was clotted up, and it became very difficult and painful. So I became much more choosy about which stuff I kept, and eventually pretty much just named loot, raid items. That was about it. If I really needed something badly and couldn't find it on the auction house real quick, I could probably craft it anyway. So that was good enough for me.
That was kind of where I landed. I was running out of space, and there were a couple things. Like my Ranger still to this day has a silver bow because it's a great bow.
Sure it is.
Low levels. So
yep.
keep some of the stuff, but mostly. If I need space, the low level stuff's the first to go. There was a note that you should always have at least one named item in Sydney's Three Barrel Cove chain reward list. If you don't get any, bug it and send a screenshot with the list in question. The same is generally true if you find something unexpected in any reward list, particularly low-level items. They do know that there is the Dwarven Ingot dropping in her chain reward chain list, which is not supposed to be there, and there are issues with Prove Your Worth and Ghost of Chance one as well. But if you find something just in general that seems out of place with an error list, bug it, take a screenshot, bug it. You also should get a full list of named items on the third run of the chain, to my understanding. So if there's a particular named item you're looking for, keep one in the chain, you'll get it. At least you're supposed to. Although that was said by a player, not a dev, so I have no reason to disbelieve it, and I hope it's true. There's a few items in there that I kind of liked.
There is. I think the very best one drops in the wilderness area, so that was handy.
Which one's that?
The Orcish Buccaneer boots or Orcish Pirate boots.
Yeah, the boots and the gloves are kind of on the top of my list for pretty much everybody. The gloves are an instant upgrade of the PDK gloves, which are really nice.
So are the boots.
And
the boots are even more an upgrade of your greaves if you have them. So
yeah, it's Firestorm Greaves, Kundarek delving boots, and Striders all in one.
With a slot so that you can throw something else in it too.
Yeah.
So
great boots.
Yeah, very nice.
What's the slot? Do you remember what color the slot is?
I believe it is a clear slot, and I know that I have a spellcraft in it right now on my artificer. So of course that could just be because I can put the clear thing in anything, but I think it's a clear slot.
Yeah, the only downside of that is I got a couple characters that I found the one of the boots out of I think the Surefoot boots out of Giant Hold Epic that has a green slot on them.
Yeah, those are nice too.
Stick a PRR augment in them.
Well, you got to pick because you get balance from those, whereas you get all kinds of crazy protection from wild magic stuff in the others. So
probably it'll be a both and thing.
Yeah, probably.
Pick the one you need for the situation.
Yep.
Let's see. Vergil posted regarding new spells, and for reasons which we will cover in a minute. Spells are time-consuming to make, perhaps surprisingly more time-consuming than might be expected. They can often make several other enhancements, for instance, in the time it takes to make one spell, and certain spells take far longer than that. Doesn't mean new spells are off the table, but new ones has to be a deliberate choice. It's worth it to compare to whatever else you can deliver. And then he went on to relate it between would you like more ice cream or lower taxes, without knowing upfront how much lower the taxes would be or how much ice cream. So, just kind of it's a good analogy in terms of what are we working on and what do you want us to work on. So, I would like more ice cream and I would like lower taxes. And I would like a lot of both. But if I can only have one, makes it pick and choose, I guess. But they are looking at some spells specifically to support the Bard enhancement trees. But that's for the sake of the enhancements, not just for adding more spells. Related to that, they are changing Shout and Greater Shout. And this is for everyone. This is not just for bards. So basically, Shout is becoming 46 damage per caster level with Fortitude save having the damage. And that's the range is going to more or less match Greater Shout. Costs about 15 spell points. And it goes up to caster level 15 for the damage. And then Greater Shout will basically do the same, except it'll go up to caster level 20, and there will be a stun effect. The Fortitude save would negate the stun as well. And it costs about 30 spell points, and they're basically comparing it to Fireball and Delayed Blast Fireball. They're willing to look at different suggestions, but those are kind of the base changes to the spells that they're looking at, and there you go.
Is it a stun or a daze? Because the Greater Shout has a daze right now, which I assume you can break people out of by damaging them.
Daze breaks when they get damaged. I thought it stunned.
Stun would be, wow, I mean, a Fireball with a stun effect would be really pretty sweet, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Especially one that nobody resists, because I don't think anything in the game is sonic resistant. Whenever I make those kind of sweeping statements, somebody invariably proves me wrong, but I can't think of one.
Golems.
Oh, okay. Never mind. See?
You're welcome.
Okay, very few things are sonic resistant. How's
Yeah,
that?
Sonic is a pretty good one in general. Sonic and Acid are probably the two least resisted elements. If you're looking for one of those. But there you go. So they're looking at those changes. Now let's talk about the other changes they're looking about. We'll start with the Spell Singer. So they before they had talked about, hey, we're looking at making changes to Spell Singer and War Chanter enhancements. This is just kind of vaguely what we're thinking. Now they came out with a much more solid proposal. Again, this is all subject to change. They're not. This is not necessarily going to go this direction. Um, and I'm just gonna skim through a lot of this. We'll link the whole post. You can look at it, and they've got everything, including the old. So what it is, they had the old enhancement list, and then they put in red the new stuff. But we're just gonna kind of cruise through some of this. Geoff, if something pops out to you that you want to mention, feel free to jump in. But we'll also just spend some time at the end, kind of talking about this, the whole Bard thing in general. First thing to note for the Spellslinger core abilities, the second, third, fourth, and fifth one all give +1 to spellcaster DC for bards. Bards only. I thought about this, like, ooh, hey, does that mean that I can get some more DCs than most? No, bard only. Bard spell DC. And then the capstone will increase by 2 charisma and 10 spell power for a total of +4 charisma and +25 universal spell power. So that's a pretty decent boost. They're going to get rid of Wand Heightening, and there was much rejoicing. That's going to merge into Wand and Scroll Mastery. And they're going to give a Sonic Blast spell-like ability, kind of a lower shout. I think this one dazes though. That's a daze, which means if you damage them, if they become active again. They're looking at increasing the duration for a Sharp Note, and possibly, as a stretch goal, make it a party-wide buff. Flicker will have a multi-selector, so you can get will plus to will saves, which is pretty powerful there. And they're going to cut Inspired Flicker. They're going to add a Suggestion spell-like ability, and possibly, as a stretch goal, a damage-based spell-like ability. Let's see. In the third tier, as a stretch goal, they're going to change Enthrallment to be an add-on to Fascinate, although there was kind of some debate on this. They might choose to leave it as it is. Some players wanted to leave it as it is, some players didn't. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to leave it, why you wouldn't want to change it, since Enthrall functionally makes Fascinate better. But there you go. They're cutting Raucous Refrain. Shout as a spell-like ability will be in the third tier, which will be pretty nice. Let's see, they're cutting Arcane Aid, and then they're going to increase the duration for Song of Arcane Might. That's the one that gives you bonus to caster levels, which is pretty nice. And then for Song of Capering, which is you use a bard song to make a single enemy dance. It has a will save, so they're going to change it to an instant cast time, which personally I don't think makes it that much better. It's still worse than Irresistible Dance, and it costs a song, which I think is a lot more valuable than a couple of spell points for Irresistible Dance, but you can still get it earlier.
Well, I actually raised that exact question, and the answer I got from the people on the forums was, oh, no, this is much better, because a song works against high spell resistance creatures and beholders. And all I could think is, well, you know what, you're still taking up a tier 5 ability on something I already have, so I'd just as soon have something else there, but I guess that's...
It's a valid point. It's a valid point. I would be more impressed if they took the will save out of it, because then it would be... I mean, if you're still using a bard song for something with a will save...
On a single creature, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meh.
So even if you've vamped up your bard songs, what are you going to have? 15? Maybe?
My bard
20?
on live currently I think has 22.
Okay, so 22 times you could do something that you can already do with a spell.
Yeah, the spell
Okay.
is better, and you can use the spell against beholders. You just have to get behind them.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But yeah, I mean it's a valid point, and you can theoretically you could get this at level 5. You can't get Irresistible Dance to like level 12.
That's true. So you could splash 5 levels of bard, but that's a pretty deep splash, and in return you could do this.
Well, I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't splash just to get that. You'd use it as you're leveling up. But it's there. That's what we're doing it. However, this is the fun one. With a multi-selector at tier 5, Mass Hold spell-like ability.
That would be cool.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, that one's okay.
Alternatively, you could pick Horn of Thunder, which is a damage thing. Max caster level 25, it does 1d4 Sonic and 1d4 Electric with a reflex save for half. So if you want to go damage, that's a great way to go. I don't really know anyone who goes damage with Bards, mostly because it's not very well supported, which this will kind of change, but still, Mass Hold, yeehaw. That's right.
Well, their vision is definitely to allow the spell singer to be an offensive caster who nukes.
Yeah, which is
They
great.
said
I have
specifically
no problem with that at all.
Right.
You could do it. It's just not changing shout and greater shout will definitely enhance that, but you still don't have a lot of spell options in that regard. However, choices are always good, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. Um, let's see. Vargwill kind of posted some thoughts to responses to a lot of questions and whatnot. In regards to the spell-like abilities, they keep increasing as you gain spell power and possibly max caster levels, and are pretty much in line with other spell casting trees, which certainly sounds like they are. Let's see. There are looking at the possibility of a Sonic Dot in that second tier slot. However, as a tier 2 ability, it's not going to be something that stacks up against the level 5 spells, the Electric Surge and Biting Cold spells, which would be fine. Although if they're going to add it as a spell ability, I hope they add it as an actual spell as well. Let's see. The question was raised if they will be fixing Sustaining Song to be an area of effect. That's the one that gives you spell points back, or maybe hit points. I'm not sure which one it is. He said that they'll consider changing it, but he's going to be semantic and say it's not a fix since it's not broken, which is fair.
Make that point. Make that point.
Yeah. It's fair point. It is working as intended that it's not an area effect, and that was always the intention. I think it was when it was an area effect, that was the bug. It was a nice bug, though. The question was asked whether we fixing music DCs, and the response was basically DCs work and have worked for at least a couple updates, as far as I know. If you're saying that you can't get perform skill still, or your perform skill still isn't high enough to handle monster saving throws in Epic, that's a much larger discussion, which is certainly fair. They were asking. Someone asked if the virtuoso ability that can they make it so that it adds to the regen song, the regen song rate if you have an anthem item. And basically, it isn't very likely. It's nice to have, but it'd have to be a stretch goal, which might not happen just because of other priorities. It'll be nice. Faster spell song regeneration would be pretty cool. Let's see. There was the question about one of the spell-like abilities being low enough that you could use it while you're on echoes. So when you're getting your just natural spell points back up to level 12. And they said that may happen. That was useful balanced feedback. Let's see, anything else in here? They did mention that they're presenting a choice between choosing high power DPS versus crowd control in regards to these the high level spell-like abilities is what they wanted. They want that to be a conscious choice. Spellcasting trees generally don't get both both as tier 5 abilities. So the onus on whoever wants this tree to be different to convince them why. If they did that, would also probably mean them making the spell-like abilities longer cooldown or more spell points if you can get both. Just to kind of do some balancing there. And let's see, they cut abilities will result of them being terribly unpopular with players, at least in their perception. They explicitly listed the old versions to remind people what was there in case you want to fight for it to keep, which they've already done this all with the council, but they want to kind of avoid the details of that while the public is getting their first crack at responding to those ideas. That's Spellslinger. Let's talk about the War Chanter. So the core abilities at level 1 will become the first core ability will become a multi-selector. You can either pick the Rage option, or you could pick just a +1 to Constitution as a passive, which, if you think about it, is pretty dang powerful, because that's one action point for one Constitution. which usually it costs 2, and usually it's like tiers 3 and 4 to get a +1 to a stat. So that's pretty slick. They moved the martial proficiencies ability to the second core ability of that, so you don't have to pick it separately. They are adding +1 to inspire courage damage at the 3rd tier and increasing duration of Song of Heroism, which is the GH song. Let's see, they are also looking at making Victory Song a permanent toggle ability, although they're not sure if they can do that yet. That's a stretch goal. And then they changed the capstone. They're giving it another 10 hit points, and then, or sorry, it already gives you 10 hit points and 1 damage. What they're doing is they're changing the add-on to Inspire Heroics. They're making it less potent, but they're changing it from 12 seconds to a 60-second duration, so that you don't have to use it quite as often. I would say that 60 seconds is still too short, personally, but that's just me. I don't want to sing a song every 60 seconds just for that buff, although it is a nice buff. So I don't think the intent is that you would always use it. Let's see, they are looking at increasing temporary hit points on Boast and removing some of the other aspects. They are removing the prereq from Boast for words of encouragement. They're adding an arcane shield chant, which gives nearby allies +5 music bonus to energy resistance as an always-on aura. You'll see that a lot actually in this tree, that they're changing. They want to change some of the stuff to auras instead of them being songs that you sing, so they're just kind of always on and a proximity effect. They are changing the amount of damage to iced edges. They're adding it to basically they're making them comparable to arcane archer stance, but both ranged and melee. So you get 1d3, 4, or 6 cold damage to your attacks, and they are cutting gathering cold. The Iron Skin chant they want to, as a stretch goal, get it to an always on R, and they're adding PRR to it. Let's see, they're moving High Spirits to tier 3. Inspire Recklessness as a stretch goal. They're going to give it a new going to change how it works and make it an always-on chant, and change it to you and nearby allies gain +6 bonus to universal spell power and double strike and double shot instead of what it is currently, which is just 6 double strike and -10 fortification. So it looks like it'll lose the penalty. Let's see, they're going to add a multiple choice one where you can either get Expeditious Chant, which is a +20% action boost bonus to movement speed, which is always on, again, as a chant, and a rallying, or you can pick the action boost Rallying Cry, which is a movement speed and +1 bonus to saving throws for 20 seconds, and they lowered that from tier 5 and put it there. They lowered Armor Mastery, and then they moved Northwind into tier 4 and changed how it works so that it basically gives the chance to freeze on vorpal hits. It took out damage. They kind of reworked that entirely. On the tier 5, they added +1 critical damage multiplier attack rolls of 19 to 20 with Howl of the North. It took out the downsides and requirements. And there is a new Cleave ability that does +2, 4, 6 weapon damage for each tier, and has a chance to freeze. So that's kind of nice. And then they also added you can use a song as a raise dead spell-like ability. They're looking at having spell-like abilities either being teleport or death pact as possibilities, and they're adding Kingly Recovery, which is basically a version of Unyielding Sovereignty, but you can use it 3 times per rest, which is pretty good. One of the devs came in and said basically what this tree is supposed to be is a support class that depends on toggle auras. If you want to play an appreciated buff character but hate micromanaging songs, this is your kind of class or your kind of prestige. They are going to look at tactical DC buffs buffing bard abilities, but they're not sure if that's going to be possible. He did say that you can now concentrate on healing, which is since it's on-demand roll, probably more fun to manage, and you don't have to worry about managing all the buffs and the songs. I'm not sure that that's actually going to play out in the way that they've got this up, but there you Vergwil posted that if you personally want to maximize your own DPS, War Trainer isn't designed for you. If you want your raid group to have a maximum efficiency, you should want a War Trainer in your party. You can get up to 45 positive in healing spell power, which is, to be fair, a lot and more than most trees. Let's see.
Somebody was complaining about that, and their rebuttal was, the only thing more than that is a Radiant Servant, and we're not going to make this as good as a Radiant Servant. I mean,
which they really should.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what their rebuttal was.
Yeah, and that's fair. Someone also said that Kingly Recovery, so you get three free heals. Great. Why don't you just call it that 10,000 hit points? Because distracting. And the response was, they're pretty sure that there's a practical difference between a heal that does 150 healing damage and a heal that does 10,000 healing damage, which is fair.
Yeah, they can bring the smartass when they need to, can't they?
Yeah, they can. I like that. I thought it was pretty funny. So there was also some question about adding a new bonus type to the game. They're not actually doing that because Bard music bonus is an existing bonus. They're just simplifying the text to be a music bonus. But they did mention that from a technical perspective, they've added new bonus types all the time to the game without any trouble, which is true. They've added a lot over the years. And they just added one, the guild buff, more or less.
That's true. Well, I mean, but that also already was in the game, right? Because that's
Sort
what
of, but it was
the guild augments used to do. Right.
True, but it was underutilized.
Just to clarify, I think that raise dead capability is a raise yourself, isn't it? Rather than raise others, or am I wrong?
It says raise dead spell-like ability costs one song, so I would assume that it will not raise you, but you can use it to raise anybody else.
Okay, very good. So I had questioned what their intent was between these changes. In fact, I don't know if you can see what I'm showing you on my screen right now. Whoops, not that. I made a graph because I think in graphs a lot of times, and I posted it into the thread, and I said, look, is this where you're trying to get to? And can you see that?
Yep.
Right. So, this breaks down the three different bards into what their roles would be. And I thought they were saying the spell singer would be, casting support, and the swashbuckler would be mainly about going out and actually hitting things, and the war chanter would be mainly about melee support. And their response was, no, I have it wrong. In fact, what they think it is more like, see if I can get to it now. Here's the long actual text response, but this is where they're trying to get to, or where they think they are going anyway. Can you see that clearly?
Yep.
So as you can see, they're really all about actually making the spell singer a primary caster, not a supporter of any sort. And the swashbuckler a primary melee class, and the war chanter they want to be all kinds of support. In fact, he might be the only dedicated to support prestige enhancement that there is, unless you argue that clerics are. So I don't know how that frames this discussion any, but I found that helpful to at least understand what it is they're trying to accomplish.
I would say a cleric is not really a support in the same way that a bard is. I mean, healing is supporting, but it's not functionally the same thing. Clerics don't generally make you better in the way that bards do with their songs.
Well, yeah, I mean, endless hit points makes you a lot better, but
true, but that's healing. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
It keeps you alive, which, to be sure, makes you more effective. You're a lot more effective alive than dead.
Well, I suspect they may run into the same problem that clerics had, in that, a cleric is a wonderful support for the party, and you could argue what kind of support, and, whatever, okay, fine. But the point is, a lot of people didn't enjoy that game, and, they wanted to find a way to build their clerics to hit stuff. And now you almost never find a dedicated healer in a group. So I wonder how often you'll find a dedicated war chanter in a group.
I kind of looked at, if that's where they're going, I think they are not going to make it with this. I think there's kind of two reasons why. One, I don't feel like the war chanter, like you're adding +1 damage. That's nice, but that's not. It adds damage, but it's not enough to make it like, whoa, that's like, it's not going to make me as a raid leader really want to get a war chanter in a party. Like, I won't even care if a bard's a war chanter. And frankly, if the party is a war chanter, I might be a little more hesitant than if I knew that they could heal or were more swashbuckler. I don't see anyone taking war chanter as their primary tree. And the healing thing is, look, spell singer is still way stronger than war chanter, particularly in healing. And I think what they need, if they want War Chanter to support healing better, they need to do what they did with Spellsinger and on the capstone give War Chanters the heal spell additionally. Like just don't change the Spellsinger one. That's fine. They didn't change. They didn't take heal out of Spellsinger because a lot of people didn't want that to happen, which is fine. But put the same thing in with the War Chanter ability. Because until War Chanter has heal, Spellsinger will be better at healing. Period. End of story.
I'm not going to argue. I have a different takeaway. I think leaving heal and Spellsinger is a mistake for other reasons because I think it just makes it's just too many. It allows it's just trying to do too many things. You know, if you want it to be an offensive caster, then let it be one. Healing is not an offensive casting. It's just not. Take it away.
It is if you're fighting undead.
So then give them something that is offensive casting against undead only. You know, like what is Sunburst or something. You know, or one of the light spells or whatever. Whereas with War Chanter, I think in my mind the mistake isn't the lack of healing, although I get your point and I grant it to you. It's more that they continue to try to emphasize that class's ability to melee, and they're not giving it enough melee to really be of any use. So all of the features that enhance that class's melee to me are a waste, and we'd be much better off recast as more support stuff.
Yeah,
this guy's not going to hit hard no matter what. So give up on that and focus on the things he is going to be good at.
Yeah, and you can always splash Swashbuckler to get some of that in, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole point. Cancer system is that it's not all in one bucket.
That's right. I'm not taking War Chanter so I can cleave things, you know. So take it out of there and give me something more useful in that slot.
Frankly, if you're going to move the heal spell to War Chanter, take it out of Spellsinger, which I'm not advocating for. I like it in Spellsinger. Just saying. Sure, it makes it too powerful, but I like it there. I think you would want to move the Scroll Mastery to War Chanter as well. It doesn't
absolutely.
Really
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But right now, like you look at War Chanter, okay, it's getting plus 45 to heal spell power, but you don't get the heal spell. Whereas in Spellsinger, that capstone that gives you heal as a spell, you also get 25 universal spell power. So it's only 20 spell power less.
Right, and there's no mass cures in either one. So I mean, this really is not going to be a healer.
Well, you do get mass cure spell. You get mass.
Bard spells have mass cures already. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. All right, but they all have it. But
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Nonetheless, my point is defeated. I take it back. Retract.
I mean, what?
The rest of my points, though. The rest of my points I stand on.
Yeah, I like the aura concept that they're coming with. I think it's underutilized. Frankly, I kind of thought one suggestion that I really liked was something that allows you to, for one song, play all of your buff songs at once. That would be slick.
Yeah, that would be real nice.
And I could see that as a tier 5 War Chanter ability. That would be pretty slick. I'd go for that.
I agree. That is very nice.
Yeah, one song, all of my buff songs, great. I mean, don't put fast things in there, but
we're gonna have to go on the forum thread and post these ideas.
This is from somebody else. It's already in there.
Oh, nice. Okay, very good.
So, and I figure that at least Jerry's going to listen to this, so I don't write too much about posting some of these on the forums. All right, let's move on to some armor and damage mitigation updates, so we can get to the good stuff with Druids. So people were asking about Warforged and Bladeforged. If you have the Mithril Body feat, you will be treated as wearing light armor. You can have evasion and improved evasion. You get 15 PRR and 15 MMR, like light armors will provide. If you are wearing adamantine body, then you will be wearing heavy armor. You'll get 45 PRR and MMR, and you cannot use evasion or improved evasion. So that's worthy of note, which I'm pretty sure is exactly how that works in the game right now, other than the level of PRR that you're getting.
Yep. No change.
Yep. So the thing that's changing with PRR, there was some question about how the armor PRR is changing. Already in the game, you get PRR based on the armor that you're wearing. The formulas currently incorporate your base attack bonus. And I think if you have a plus 20 base attack bonus, you would have 26 PRR for heavy armor. And it's going up to 45. So that's getting a huge boost. Light armor isn't getting very much of a boost because currently right now you would get 12 PRR for light armor. and it's only going up to 15. So that's not changing very much, but the heavy armor is getting a big boost. Um, they did point out that you don't need to know math to master the system. More is better, which is great. I mean, this is something that D&D pen and paper figured out with version 3 when they got rid of the THACO, which was to hit armor class 0, which involved a whole bunch of charts and was lower AC was actually better, and it made things a lot harder to figure out. Trust me. So let's see. Basically, what they're looking to do is for a tank that particularly like heavy armor tanks, they're looking to smooth out the damage curve to make it more predictable, taking out a lot of the spikes, making it just kind of a more of a flat line curve that is easier to react to, as opposed to builds that currently are more evadey types. If you fail 2 reflex saves, you could be dead. Which is just the way that those builds work, and they're fine with that. What they want to change is the fact that the heavy armor tanks will take more damage over time, but it'll be predictable. They won't have as many spikes, so failing 2 reflex saves wouldn't kill them. They also point out that a lot of people are possibly missing the fact that large or towel shields will double your MMR versus damage attacks that allow reflex saves. So if you take a fireball to the face, and you have a tower shield, you're actually getting double your MMR value to reduce that, which is pretty impressive. So basically, anything that works with evasion, if you have a heavy or large shield, you're getting double your MMR value, which is really good. Obviously, they don't want you to be able to use evasion and that ability, which is why that's where they drew the line there.
Did you define MMR?
That's magical resistance rating. No, I didn't in this show. We talked about it fairly extensively last week, I think.
Oh, very good. Okay.
The short version is MMR works exactly like PRR except for magic damage. That's the short version. Your armor will give MMR provided that it's magical, which is every armor in the game above level 2, more or less. So that I understand why they put that in there, that qualifier in there, but it's kind of silly. Because nobody wears non-magical armor past like level 5 that I've ever seen, unless you can't find something, which is really amazing that you can't find something in that level. But that's not a story. They did mention that the fact that characters designed as tanks can't hold aggros on the list, that's a different thing. They don't want to turn DDO into a strictly Trinity game. They like that you don't have to play towards that paradigm, but they don't want tanks to be useless either. I would say if you can't hold aggro as a tank, you probably should look at some things, because you can do it, and I've done it very successfully. And I kid you not, like, this is a while back, but I was in Fall of Truth with my tank, and I had to go answer the door or something, and I came back 2 minutes later, and I literally hadn't done anything for 2 minutes, and I still had aggro on Truth 1. So don't tell me you can't hold aggro. I'm not sure how that worked, but I still had it when I got back. But
no exaggeration here, folks. This is how it happened.
I was in the Sentinel tree. I mean, this is a character that has 100% clicky, had the plus 1000% hate clicky, was intimidating. Like I would intimidate plus 100% or plus 100% because it lasted a minute. Hit the intimidate and then hit the plus 1000 and then go to town with cleave and great cleave and stuff like that. So you can really boost the threat. There are ways to do that in the game. Now, granted, you have to be a little bit more conscious about it because characters in today's world can really boost their own DPS and thus their own threat. But I kind of reject the idea that a tank can't hold aggro just as a general statement. It's not as easy as it used to be. Well, in some ways it's easier. So
I felt their statement had more to do with the fact that the tank isn't going to be able to stand against the aggro if he's got it.
No, I don't think that's necessarily what they're saying. I think people, if you go too defensive, you have problems holding aggro. Like, you have to build to hold aggro currently. They are looking to make that easier, which is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But if you build you have to build to hold aggro, and you're certainly not going to be able to hold aggro just in any generic Epic Destiny either, particularly with some of the characters that are going nuts. In my defense, I think this was before Fury Shot archers really got going too. So.
Well, I mean, they in the post that was it. Who made it last night? It was Steel Star. Somebody jumped into that thread last night.
Severin.
And yeah, posted a clarification about intent. And it seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, right now, in their view, the only real damage mitigation strategy is the evasion strategy. And they just and they're trying to introduce heavy armor as a viable damage mitigation strategy along with evasion, so you can do either one. So I think that goes above, and that's stepping outside of the aggro discussion. It's more of a survivability discussion.
Yeah, that's what they're really trying to address. The aggro thing is not what this is trying to address, and really, it's currently in the game. If you look at it, what heavy armor is a very valuable damage mitigation, just not against fireball, right? And fireball affects our area of effects, do a lot of damage that's magical. That's the issue. If we're just talking about standing in front of something and getting smacked around physically, heavy armor is a great viable option, and there's a lot of people that are doing that really effectively. Temple of Deathworm is a good example. That dragon doesn't do a lot of area effect damage, or at least not something that evasion would necessarily really help you with. So it works really well in there, but if you look at the Fire Peaks raid, on the other hand, a heavy armor tank is at a major disadvantage because they're taking a lot of fireball damage, a lot of fire damage in the raid. And that's really what's being addressed in these changes is the MMR values. That's really what's coming down to. They're trying to flatten out the magic damage spike curve to be similar to the physical damage curve, which for an evasion character is more or less the same, and functionally is a little different, but an evasion character can really do better with the magical damage because they can avoid it a lot more frequently. Granted, again, still, if they fail 2 saves, they can still be dead. So that's really going. They also say that one-handed fighting feats will not work with shields. They are trying to keep those pure. They are looking in the DPS tree they're making for shields, shield users, to have shield bashes hit pretty hard. They just want to make sure that doesn't work with blocking because they don't want people to be stuck in a situation or stuck in a playstyle where they feel like they have to block and click for shield bashes. That's not what they want people to do, which is great because blocking is boring. It can be useful, but blocking is boring. Let's see. Paladin changes. Just kind of some updates on that. They are possibly going to drop the light damage, but they're kind of trying to figure out still what they're doing. But there was some comments that they're not going to just add a bunch of feats. They want Paladin to be functionally different than Fighter. That's kind of the flavor of the two, how it differs. Fighters get a bunch of feats, Paladins don't. They get other things. And they don't have the idea that adding 4d6 light damage is, quote, just a little bit of damage. But recognize that if there's a perception that that's a little damage, then that speaks more to a concern of balance about epic scaling. So they're still looking at that stuff. They're also looking at barbarians are also on the radar for improvements as well. So that might be a little bit later down the pike. But those are all the changes. Woohoo! Anything you want to say before we move on?
No.
Great.
Sorry, not a thing.
Bonus days, 30% guild renown. You can still buy +6 tomes through June 29th in the store, and the sales for the store this week are 35% off of the following: crafting experience elixirs, crafting success boosters, crafting essences, and shroud ingredients. So if you've been waiting to get one of those yellow tokens, now would be a good time. The freebie for the week is a small jewel of fortune. The code is loot19, 1 per account. The 98th Chronicle of the week. Let's see, Ginger Spice soloed Maze of Madness on Epic Elite and a YouTube video, so you can check that out. Katz is drawing her characters. I didn't look at them, but I'm sure they look pretty darn awesome. Thalone shows how to get through the spike trap and prove your worth in a new video. He has a whole thread about avoiding traps, just in general. A lot of videos about how to avoid different traps in there. The guild for the week. The Samurai Pizza Cats are a Galanda-based guild looking for new members. that is a pretty interesting name. The comment for the week: if Jack Tibbers were in a professional sports league, which sport would Jack Tibbers play, Geoff?
I would think Top Chef. I'm not sure that's a sport, but he's got such an awesome chopper just sort of built in, you know?
I'd say mixed martial arts. Seems to be a hard guy to kill. Let's see, Fansite News. MD Interactive is a YouTube channel that features DDO gameplay and is hosting a giveaway. We got a shout out for talking about pugs in our last episode, and update 22. Enrique is looking at the Grey Moon Cult of the Six tribal conflict in a blog post. DDOGamer is talking about ballistas. Do you want to just shoehorn in DDOGamer in here?
It would have to be fast because we still got a lot to talk about. But yeah, this week I mainly just kind of waxed rhapsodic about how much fun I'm having over in Three Barrel Cove with the pirate ship battles. So especially the ballistas. The ballistas are awesome. Have you used one?
Yeah, I have. And I should put a note in here now. Ballistas are a blast, but watch out and storm the beaches because it's a lot more difficult than it used to be. The ballistas fire back now.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They have a much bigger area of effect. Like from my perspective, like this, the bolt is doing this, right? It's like way over my head. Yeah, I died.
Yeah, that's correct. It's got a huge area of effect. See, these are all the things that make it so awesome, though, when you're manning the ballistas in Three Barrel Cove. So you can use it to shoot way across the valley and just completely decimate monsters you can't even see yet, as long as they're active. It's just really a lot of fun. I love the ballistas.
Indeed.
Yep.
Let's see. On the Twitch feed this week, the Cordovan did his weekly Wednesday thing at Epic Three Barrel Cove. They also started a Summer Fling static group. Let's see, it was Lessa, Samus, Jerry, Grimord, and some others. They're on Argo. They're doing that from about 1:30 Eastern on Wednesdays throughout the summer. Their rules include a walk of shame when you die. I'm not really sure what that means, but it sounds a lot of fun. I probably have to watch just to see what happens there. I did mention Thalon's Trap Avoidance Mitigation Guide. That's what was being referenced earlier. The High Lords are doing Thunder Peak raids tonight. I'm really catching the show on the day that it's being recorded. There is a Gen Con meetup. We'll link to that in the show notes. Gen Con is August 14th to 17th. PAX Prime will be August 29th to September 1st, so those are both coming up. Okay, you ready to talk about Druids, Geoff? Or did we lose Geoff on the phone call? We're going to talk about Druids. That's going to be a roundtable discussion.
I'm ready to talk about Druids.
Awesome.
Apparently I'm not ready to hit my mute button when I think I have.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, let's see. Geoff, do you want to start?
I will. Now, I have not done much meleeing with a Druid, but I have spent some time running a caster Druid. And I have to tell you, that my phones are going crazy on me. Okay, that's turned off. The other one's okay. I should be good. I think the Druid just makes an amazing caster. So my gamer girl's actually the one who discovered this build, and I've talked about it before because it just is such a thrilling build. I think it really is the most dominant heroic build that I played, and in the course of having a completionist, I played a great deal of various heroic builds, and and having 19 alts on one server. And I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be expert on all these things, but I'm also I didn't fall off the turnip truck last night either. I have never seen a build that races through the heroic levels like a caster Druid. Now, she has taken that same approach into the epic levels. I haven't played this caster Druid in epic. I've only been watching her, and she's just ripping it up. Do you want to talk specifics?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a picture up now of her and I as side-by-side freezer burn builds in our water elemental form, ready to go tear up something. All right, the specifics of the build are you max out your wisdom and your constitution. There's room for a little bit of variation. So I wanted my build to be super self-healy, so I topped off the wisdom a little bit. I didn't go quite max, so that I could instead bump up my intelligence and get some extra skill points that I was able to put into heal. Let's see, I actually have the build available to me here somewhere. Where is it? There we go. There's some numbers. Now, in terms of gearing and so forth, I found this to be incredibly easy to gear because I mean, you're going to need the normal stuff that you always need. You know, something death block, a bunch of hit points, you know, yada yada yada, spell points, yada, you know, all that stuff. After that, all you really need is a couple of good caster sticks that you can probably find on the auction house for just platinum. You know, the need for super epic stuff is not really there. The only one specific item that I think any epic casting druid would for sure want is the one that you get. What is it? The Sage's necklace that I think you get from Friends in Low Places. That
Something like
includes
that.
a +5 to your evocation level, and it does something else too. I forget exactly what, but it's
It's
pretty
plus
nice.
15 spellcraft and plus
Yes, there
5
you go.
education DC.
Yes, so I mean that's about the one magic item that I would call out as you know pretty much a necessity. On the other hand, it's also an automatic get. You know, you run that quest, you're going to get that item. You don't have to worry about it dropping. It just happens.
I do want to jump in
Um,
here, Jeff, real quick. The numbers that you're showing are that's your heroic numbers, correct?
yeah, I think this was as of level 20, or maybe even 14. This was as of level 14. On the left side, you can see the starting numbers. That's why I put this up. And you know, 1,300 spell points and 158 cold power is awesome at level 14. It's not awesome in epic, but at level 14, it's very good. Um, now, so skills, pretty straightforward. You want spellcraft, you want heal, you want concentration. Although actually, that's turned out to not be as awesome as I had hoped it would be. Um,
It's still important for scroll healing. If you end up in a situation where you need to do a lot of healing, then you're going to use a lot of scrolls. It's still important.
I max out concentration. I just do. I mean, it's disappointing to me how many times I get interrupted anyway. But a few of the druid spells are super slow cast, especially their raise. You know, they don't have a raise dead; they have a resurrection, and it's or not resurrection, reincarnation, and it is super slow cast. So you know, build your concentration. Just don't expect you're going to get a ton of return on it. And in this particular build, I think jump is very important because you're not going to be in combat, and your goal is going to be to run around and jump around and stay away from the enemy swords, and I find that to be easier to do with a bunch of jump. As far as, let's see, so we've talked about gear, we've talked about skills,
We're talking about
enhancements.
feats.
Let's see, all right, feats, I have, oh, I have this written in the notes, don't I? I just have to
Yes, you do.
scroll down until I find it again. Let's see. Well, let's talk about past lives first because they inform the feats a little bit. This build is very helped by wizard past lives, and if you're going to be doing any soloing or duoing, druid past lives. So the wizard past lives help a lot because of the evocation DC, and the druid past lives help because they really help your summonses. And as a druid, you can have more summonses than most classes. And you also have a buff that is unique to Druidism that improves the capabilities of your buffs or of your summonses and hirelings and minions. So it is plausible to actually have a cloud of hirelings with you, even up into the epic levels, and they actually add value. The dog still tends to die at most inconvenient times, but not always. If you can get you get used to tactics of having him stay until the melee's well underway and under control, and then bring him in. There's things you can do to lessen the chances that he'll die, and all of your minions can be up to as much as plus 10 on every stat, which makes them much more effective than a normal cloud of summonses.
It's worth
all right.
noting that druids have a lot of spells that buff your summons.
That's exactly my point. Yes, that's exactly right. Sorry, go ahead. Did I just cut you off?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Please continue.
Take Arcane Prodigy because I have the Wizard Past Life and I can. For another, I'm going to take Augment Summons because I've structured this character to be effective with a cloud of summonses and minions, so Augment Summons adds +4 more to all of their stats on top of that. I'm trying to scroll down to where I have this in the notes, but I lost track. We have Mental Toughness, Improved Mental Toughness, and Epic Mental Toughness. The one problem with this build, and it's not really a problem, but it'll go through every spell point you find a way to give it. So having all of the mental toughnesses available to you and Arcane Prodigy, I mean that's 4 feats, but you'll use them and you'll be happy that you have them all.
It's also worth noting that mental toughness increases your critical spell chance as well.
Yes, it does, and thank you for pointing that out. So let's see. Others, let's see. Then also toughness and epic toughness. You just can't have too many hit points in the epic levels. How many have I hit so far?
You've also got empower and maximize.
Oh, right. Well, of course, because you're a nuking build that uses elemental spell damage. So
I
you
don't
want
see
to do.
quicken in your list.
I'm sorry?
I don't see quicken in your list, but
I
quicken would be
don't
another
have it in
feature.
my list because most of the stuff is fast enough, and you're in melee rarely enough that it's not as big an issue to not have quicken. Now, having said that, we're only just now getting up into the level 28 elites, epic elites, and we're starting to run into a bit more resistance. So it may be that if you ask me this question in a month, I'll have a different answer. But right now, we have marched through the entire game on elite at level and have really had, I mean, very, very few problems. Every now and then, one particular quest will stand out as different, as difficult for various reasons. Like, for example, the first time we ran in Giant Hold, it's full of dwarves.
Uh,
It's
Foundation of Discord.
Thank you very much. On Epic Elite, these guys spam these disease spells that sap your constitution as soon as they see you. And that was just wailing on us for some reason. You know, we'd immediately become helpless and get swarmed. But for the most part, you know, you're just going to run as fast as you can through the quest. You're going to drop a dot and keep running, and that technique continues to work even into Epic Elite, even up into, you know, the Giant Hold content, all of the Evening Star content, except we haven't been to the Stormhorns yet, but yes, in Weeloon. We went right through Weeloon like it was nothing. So, am I missing any more specifics on the build?
I would say, just to chime in, I would say I would consider if taking augment summons out and putting quicken in, but that's more a reflection of my playstyle. I'm not really big on the pets and the hirelings, and I'm not a very good manager of those. I'm not saying that augment summon is a bad feat. Just personally, my playstyle would be have quicken in there. Just I like quicken, particularly if I'm going to end up doing some healing and stuff like that. You didn't really let's spells and enhancements would probably be good to talk about.
All right, spells. There's a progression that you use as you run into an encounter. Usually, it depends. If the guys are strung out, you're going to hit them with your dots and just keep running. If there's a bunch of them, you're probably going to drop an earthquake and try to get everybody to run into the earthquake, and then you're going to throw up probably the lightning area of effect spell and just watch these guys cook. I mean, you can wipe out the entire encounter often for 2 spells. Earthquake is, you know, this is why you want your wisdom to be so high, because earthquake is you want your DC to work, and it will. Even on Epic Elite, if you've got your wisdom maxed, earthquake is still going to be effective for you. So, and then you throw an area of effect on top of that, then and it's just like a very effective combination. They also get very good SLAs, which is very helpful because, like I say, this is a mana-intensive way to play. So a lot of your best spells get you. The SLAs are primarily just duplicates of spells you already have for cheaper, so you'll rely on them a lot. As far as enhancements, we spent 52 points in the Season's Herald tree. I don't recall if any of them stood out as being specific things that you absolutely have to have, but 52 points is most of the tree, and it's a good tree. You're going to do well in there.
Let's just say the one thing I noticed, you didn't have heighten in your feats list. I'm not sure that you really need it. Earthquake's probably the only DC spell you're really using
Well,
that
and
you
it's
really want
already
the
a high-level
DC.
spell, so heighten's
Yeah,
only giving you 2 more DCs on that, right? Isn't it like 7th level?
something like
So
that.
yeah, no, don't have heighten and don't have quicken. And I can certainly understand people who would argue, nope, you need heighten and quicken. As you pointed out, you know, different play styles, different choices. So that
This
would
is
be,
more of a damaging casting build as much of a DC build. It's kind of what's happening here too. So
I think I would agree with that. This guy primarily nukes things. But having said that, the crowd control, the earthquake is the best crowd control spell in the game, in my opinion. You may disagree, but I no, you don't. You can't. It's just the best crowd control spell in the game. It's the one that's most likely to be effective at epics. It seems to me. I don't know why. I guess a lot of
I
mobs don't
think
have the right save for it.
yeah, I think
And
the way that it saves and once you knock them down, I think it's a balance check to get up as opposed to like if you compare it to Otto's dancing sphere.
mhm.
That's you keep saving to break it. Whereas Earthquake, it's save or get knocked down, and once you're knocked down, it turns to a balance check.
Yeah, and they
I
all just
think
sit
that's
there and
how it
do
works.
push-ups while your lightning storm eats them away. Generally they don't get back up. Um,
I do want to talk about you. You seem to be using a lot of cold spells,
mhm.
and electric spells, which are supported by water, the water elemental form, right?
That is correct. Almost exclusively. We'll swap over when we run into something cold resistant, but there really isn't very many things that are cold proof. And even stuff that are cold resistant are only a little bit cold resistant. It is surprising how many monsters cold works on that you wouldn't expect. It works on most undead. It works on all kinds of stuff.
Doesn't work on skeletons.
It works on some skeletons. Yes, it does. And it's surprising. Wait a minute. I'm saying things like they're fact.
In general, skeletons and liches are immune to cold.
Uh, but I think it's a more of an individual case than you would think. So it works on wraiths. It works on.
Yeah, well, those aren't skeletons.
It works on a
I have a
cold one.
cold savant. Had a cold savant for a long time, so I got
Yeah, it
used
worked.
to
It worked on a.
liches and skeletons are always a problem.
Yeah, I'm not. I think the only skeletons that are really a huge problem are the ones that are made out of ice to begin with. What were they called? I forget. Um, Surprisingly, even the snow golem I think took cold damage. I mean, it's really amazing how many things do that probably shouldn't. So, but regardless, you have lightning. So if the cold isn't working, swap to lightning, and if something has both, well, then change over to a fire elemental and burn them up. But that is never. Maybe when you're running the
Only
abbot
thing
raid.
that I
Other
can
than that,
think of,
never.
the only thing I can think of that is both immune to electric and cold are liches, which would be the abbot and
Right.
the For All the Truth Draco Lich, and also Temple of Deathworm Draco Lich.
I'm trying to think if I can think of anything else.
There's a couple other liches.
Golems are immune to most kinds of elemental damage, or not immune, but resistant.
Yeah, but they fall really well.
Yeah, and there was one monster I ran into recently that seemed to be immune to all of them, but I can't remember what it is. Anyway, the point is your cold damage is going to hit almost everything, and what it doesn't, your lightning damage almost certainly will. And if that doesn't work, that's okay. You've got other options. You're not going to be as good at them because you have to really specify. I mean, you want to really load up on your cold spell power, and doing so means you're not going to be as effective in your other areas. But you'll be effective enough. You'll be fine if you ever have to swap back to them.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that this is not something that's unique to druids. I mean, any damage caster has this problem. There are certain monsters throughout the game that are going to be resistant to the type of damage that you are specialized in. That's why you need another elemental that you're at least partially decent at.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll still find stuff that's going to be immune to both of those. And then you just kind of go like, all right, barbarian, this is why you're here.
Yeah, go get him. There's a reason we brought you. Swing that axe. I would argue that druids are the best elemental casters in the game. I know there are people who will say, no, savant, sorcerers are the best elemental casters in the game. But I don't think so. I think specifically when it comes to cold, because of their spell choices, I don't think anybody can touch the DPS of a caster elemental druid. So now this is opinion, not stating it as fact. How do you feel about that?
They are very strong. It depends. It's a different style. I think that's kind of a key thing. The druids elemental damage. I haven't actually really played an elemental druid very much. Just my druid, which I'll kind of talk about in a little bit, using it kind of ad hoc as kind of a supplement. But my general experience is most of the druid spells are much more dots, damage over time, area effect damage over time. So it's a little bit different style. Whereas if you play like a sorcerer, you get like Polar Ray and Frostlance are shoot, they take damage. Shoot, they take damage. Shoot, they take damage. Whereas, but it's just boom, and then they take damage and you're done, as opposed to you take more damage over time.
Right. So in many cases, it's shoot and then shoot again and then shoot again and then shoot again, and now it's dead.
Right. Which makes
Whereas what the druid does once and then dances around and moves on to the next target, and eventually the thing he shot falls over. So
when you're talking about a sorcerer, Ice Savant has always been, in my opinion, of the four different savants, Ice is the best at single target damage, because Frostlance is a single target spell, but does a pretty good amount of damage. Whereas the other ones kind of lean more towards more crowds.
Yeah, Frostlance is an awesome spell. I agree.
It's a great spell. I think when you're talking about a druid, you're going to be much better at crowds, particularly in this. I think that's going to be generally true because most of their stuff is area effect spells, but particularly true here. I mean, you do have dots and stuff, but it's a different play style. It's a different way. This is a lot more fire and forget and let it rack up some damage.
Yep,
Whereas sorcerer, like their one dot spell, you have to manage it if you want
you
it to
do
really ramp up in
because
damage.
it stacks, and they have two of them, but you have to sit there and stack them up on top of each other too. So
Yeah, which
um,
can be distracting.
it sure can, and it means you got to stay in one place. So, but again, you're absolutely right about the play style. So her twists are reflective of her play style. You know, she has precise evocation to raise those DCs even further.
Is
She
earthquake an
has,
evocation spell?
pardon?
Is earthquake an evocation spell?
I believe it is. I'll have to double check, but pretty much all the druid spells are, which is very effective because you get, it means they don't save as well from your damage spells, but it also means they don't save as well from your DC. You can use one spell school for damage and for crowd control, which is a difference from a wizard where you have to, you're probably gonna have to build up two spell schools. Um, precise evocation, yes. Then the next twist for my gamer girl is divine energy resistance, and this talks to the cloud of minions approach. Divine energy resistance gives everybody, it's mass spell resistance or elemental resistance of all types. And it
And
lasts
it's
like 25
45,
minutes.
if I
Yeah,
remember
and
correctly.
it lasts 25 minutes too, so it's really nice. And then endless faith is a spell points thing, so it gives you a 10% bonus to your spell points. So uh, these are not normal twists. I think most people would have some other choices in here, but for her play style, they're perfect. So
I would say
now as far
just to kind of
sorry,
jump in, some other. Well, first off, earthquake is an evocation spell. It's a level 8 spell.
okay, very good.
Those are some things we were talking about earlier. As far as twists go, I would say evocation is going to be a great thing because you're going to be using earthquake. So boosting that's good. There's one in the draconic tree and one in the there's also one in the magister tree which you can get 3 out of, and I
Yes,
think is precise evocation the one that's in the divine tree.
yes. I'm not sure of the answer to that, but I know she hasn't been through the draconic tree yet, so I know she didn't take that one.
Yeah, you see, you can get some stuff there. I would say some other twists that would probably be really, really good. Cocoon is just kind of generally a good twist, particularly if you want to splash healing into this build, which you were kind of talking a little bit about.
Well, but it has healing. It comes with healing
True.
spells, so that's not
Cocoon,
really a
Cocoon
necessity.
has great range though, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's a good option.
Okay.
Depending if you want to be more along the healing side, or you're going to be going in as kind of more of a healer, or that you need to supplement the party with extra heals than you might normally do, you could slot in Cocoon just kind of for the run. Renewal will kind of be along the same lines as well. But yeah,
Yeah, I can see your point, but yeah, this one is, you've got enough healing built in. Plus, in my case, I would probably have put the halfling dragon marks on there, although I don't recall if I did for sure or not, just because I normally do. And then you've got the healing out the backside, as much healing as you could want. So
yeah, and the twists are meant to be. You can interchange them pretty easily. So it
that's
depends what you're running, and depending on what role you're filling in the party as well. So
yep, and like I say, ultimately the net of this is that we're starting to run into some tough times now that we're hitting some of the level 27 epic elites, but up to there, it's really been unusual for a quest to be super challenging. They even some of them are grinding and take a while, but they're not hard, and not there's very little question of whether or not we're going to succeed. We are starting to run into some issues though at level 27, so I'm sure we're going to be making more adaptations to the build, and it'll look a little different a month from now than it does today.
what do you like for destinies?
Um, I would imagine that Draconic is where this one is going to end up. I would think this would be her go-to destiny.
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd kind of be my sense as well. It's not Shirati casting is pretty popular, but you're not going to have enough
exactly.
hits for that to be as effective.
That's correct.
But Draconic will really boost your cold power, give you the cold bursting. Actually, when you're talking about twists, if you're not in Draconic and you can, you have to build it up because it's level 4 ability, but the energy burst out of Draconic would be a really strong twist for this build as well.
Yeah, it would. Absolutely. So she hasn't done Draconic yet, but I have a feeling that when she does, that will end up being her primary chain. It doubles down on the abilities she already has. Plus, she doesn't like the fact that everybody's running Shirati, so I'm guessing she would stick with the Draconic, even if even if, just so that she's doing her own thing, and more power to her for that.
Yeah, indeed. Although I would say the first tier out of Shirati, the cold stance for offensive casting would probably
Hmm.
be another good option because it'll scale
Stay
with your spell
frosty.
power. Yeah,
Stay
it'll scale
frosty is
with your
nice.
spell power, and
Hmm.
it also slows people down.
That'd be a
Um,
good twist.
which yeah, so if you're talking about having an ice, you drop an ice storm or call lightning down, and they get ticked with that, and then they get slower, they can't get out of it very as quickly, and
Yeah,
helps you
she's
tie up
getting
some
that
of the
from
stuff.
something else though. She gets that same capability from something in the. I don't remember what it is,
Might be
but I
the
think
season herald
there's.
tree.
Yeah, there's something in the Season's Herald tree that already does that.
Yeah.
So it does it more in Stay Frosty because you get. I imagine, because you'd have to. Your opponent would be facing two DCs potentially instead of just one. But anyway, so yeah, we could discuss variations all you like. They're good.
I would say a good
It's a good base build. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
yeah. Another good variation. Well, I think you listed it as being halfling, because you like halflings. I
Hmm.
would say some strong options as well might be humans. You get an extra bonus feat, as well as a clicky 20% spell power clicky, which can
Yep,
be
that
pretty
would be
nice.
nice. Hmm.
And a little you can get a little healing amp out of that as well. The human tree is actually pretty strong, particularly at low level, because there's also a something that adds. I'm trying to remember this right. I think that's the one that you get extra PRR if you're getting hit. You get hit a little bit. But that'd be good. Half elf would probably work pretty well as well because you could use some synergies there. I would probably lean towards human. I think I've seen a lot of humans doing build caster druid builds, um, specifically because you get an extra skill point and you get an extra feat, which is really handy. Um, I would say don't go Warforged with this build just because if you're going to be in an elemental form, you lose all your Warforged traits. So you kind of lose the benefit of being a Warforged.
Yeah, that makes sense. A Morning Lord would be kind of interesting too because they get that intelligence boost. So you'd be able to pick up the extra skill point without having to, and still be able to max out your wisdom.
Yeah, I think human would probably be a little easier. It depends on where you're. If you're doing iconic, then yeah, it would work pretty well. But there's a lot of different ways you can go with that. And this is more. This is one of those builds that it's less about some of the finer points and more about like okay, build up the spell power and go to town.
There you go.
Pretty simple.
All evocation, all cold. Go have a good time.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep.
So we'll talk about my build next. And this is going to be more of a melee build. Um, so we've got Geoff kind of doing the Geoff is being the caster druid, and I'll be playing the melee druid. So the goal for this build is to be a melee druid that can support with secondary heals. It also it's not it has you can do a really strong healing mode out of this, and I have done. I think I actually solo healed Fall of Truce with this guy a couple of times. Um, it's not as easy. Like we're talking about a caster druid versus a melee druid. Uh, Jeff's build is going to have a lot easier time switching into healer mode because you don't actually lose a lot of your effectiveness as a caster druid by switching into heals. The problem with this melee druid is wolf form is going to be kind of your baseline form. You can't use scrolls in an animal form like you can in an elemental form, so that's going to
Right.
be kind of a problem. But having said that, I've switched out of wolf form and just gone straight healing and been very effective at it. So stats, we're not going to go for max on anything here because this is going to be more about getting bang for your buck than it is going to be about min maxing. Um, I went with strength 16, dex 14, 14 con, um, 16 wisdom. Um, that's that's a 32 point build. Um, so if you get extra points, you can look at boosting more Constitution. Intelligence and Charisma are your dump stats. We're not going to worry about those. The reason for the Dex is because I'm going to take a couple levels of Monk, so it's going to help my Reflex save. Uh, as variation, you could ditch Strength and go for Weapon Finesse in Dex, and that'll kind of boost your saves and to hit. You lose a little bit of damage, but that's an option. You could also lose some of the Dex and go more Strength or Constitution. It's kind of a bang for your buck thing. Is really kind of where it came down to. But you don't need to max your wisdom. You do need to achieve 19 in some fashion, which you can use items for that to cast all your spells. But this is not a DC casting build. We don't need to max the wisdom, but get a wisdom item. Uh, it's worth noting that this build has to be lawful neutral. The class split is going to be 17 Druid and 3 Monk. And you notice when I'll show pictures. I haven't gone into this build yet, but this is where I'm going. Um, mine is currently an 18-2. The reason why I want 3 Monk is because I want the light. I want to be a light monk, so that you
Okay.
can use the positive finishing move specifically. You'll use all those kind of finishing moves in general, but that's kind of the thing that we're going for here. I'll kind of cover that in a little while. As far as race goes, I went half orc, partly because I wanted to have another half orc, and there's a lot of ways you can go with this. Human half elf works really well for reasons I already discussed with your build. Halfling works particularly if you want to go for a dex build, and you can also splash in some healing with the halfling enhancements. I like half orc; gives you +2 to strength. You lose 2 to intelligence and charisma. Those are my dump stats, so I don't care. And there's no, I mean, you end up starting with a 6 intelligence and 6 charisma, which means you can't use silver flame pots, or it's hard to use silver flame pots, but you don't really need to worry about that um, because you can heal. You have spells. Um, those are just some thoughts there. As far as when you are leveling, take those 2 monk levels fairly early on because that gets you evasion earlier, and that's always going to be helpful. The 3rd level is kind of whenever you want to utilize positive monk moves. There's no real onus on when to take that. As far as feats get a little tricky here, and I'm going to be a little more specific than I might normally be, because you're going to run into a lot of level requirements and base attack bonus requirements. You get 2 monk feats by being 3 monk. Those are going to be power attack and stunning blow, and you need to take those as monk feats because those are the 2 feats out of here that you can actually take as monk feats that you really want to make sure you get. There's a couple other feats that you could take in there, but and I'll mention those as we go through. Meta magic feats, you want quicken and maximize. You don't need anything else. Even though we're going to be doing a lot of healing at times, empower heal is kind of a waste of a feat. Maximize will still affect your healing spells. It's a little bit more pricey in terms of spell points, but it works for both your healing spells and your damage spells. Quicken, because we're going to be in combat a lot, we're going to get hit a lot, we need to be able to cast those spells. So a little bit different of a playstyle than what Geoff had. We want the Monk Past Life feat. So it's really good to get a Monk Past Life in here. The Disciple of Fist, this is one that you choose because it increases your attack die, or your damage die for your attacks, even in wild form.
Does that stack with like Jed's tech guy and all that sort of thing?
Yep.
Nice. Okay.
In general, pretty much in general, a feat is always going to stack with an item.
Yeah.
There's a lot of items that increase or have like reinforced fists that increase your attack damage, and those I'm pretty sure they all work with this build. If they're not, then I'm doing something wrong. Level 9, the feat you get at level 9 is the tricky one. You pretty much get to pick something because you can't. We're going to get improved critical bludgeoning at level 12, which is going to work for. It's kind of weird. Improved crit bludgeoning works for unarmed and wild shape attacks, so that gives you improved crit. And then once you're hit level 9 as a druid, you can start taking natural attack. You can take it 3 times, and it gives you a bunch of. I think it's 6 double strike or something to that effect. I'd have to double check on how much it is, but it gives you double strike, which is really what you want. So level 9 is kind of you pick something that you can fit in here. I like dodge because defense is going to be a little bit of a problem with this character. You're not going very high in defense. It's kind of offense and healing. If you're going to be a dex build, you can throw weapon finesse in here. Both of these feats you can take as monk feats too, so you could put power attack or stunning blow in this slot. Just kind of depends on what you want. Rounding out, so at level 12 you get improved crit, 15 and 18 you get natural attack, and then one of your epic feats you'll probably want to take natural attack as well. The epic feats, there's not really anything specifically epic that is a great feat for this build or is really keys in on this field more than something else. Blinding Speed, obviously, the permanent haste one is a good one at level 27. The tactical feat for the Epic Destiny feat you can get at 26 and 28 is a good choice. Positive spell power is good because you're going to be doing some healing, if not just for yourself, for the party as well. So just kind of once you get to this point, it's kind of whatever you want to slot it in. If you like being in Legendary Dreadnought, you might take Cleave just so you can use a lot of those abilities. Um, I didn't do that personally, but that's an option as well.
Huh? What does a wolf look like when you hit cleave?
I have no idea. I did take Cleave. I didn't have room for Cleave. The
Okay.
one thing I do want to note in here is two weapon fighting does not work for wolf form or bear form.
Right.
Or if it does, it's not supposed to. Um, so don't take those feats. You don't need those feats. They're a waste of feats. Uh, so that's just something to bear in mind. Skills, heal and concentration are kind of the two important ones. Um, Int is a dump stat, so you're not gonna have a lot of skill points. Although I think druids get 4, and I think you're gonna lose. If you're half orc like I was, you only get 2 skill points a level because you start at 8, which is -1, and then you go down to 6, which is -2. So that's just something to keep in mind. You're not gonna have a lot of skill points. You don't need a lot of skill points, but heal and concentration are kind of the two to boost your healing supplemental abilities. If you want to take spellcraft and be more offensive with your spells, that's an option. Jump, bounce, and tumble are always kind of my defaults of, hey, I got skill points. What should I put them in? Jump, balance, and tumble. Usually, personally, I don't go above about a 15 jump.
10.
Um,
Yeah, 10 is it for me. Okay.
it depends if you can cast jump. If you can cast
Right.
jump, 10. If you get 10 jump, and a druid can cast jump too, so you don't need to get any higher than a 10, and that includes your strength. Um, balance is always a really popular one. If I have extra skill points, I'll usually boost jump so that I get it between a 10 and a 15 for the character, and then I go nuts on balance so that I can stand up when I get knocked down.
Yep, good choice. I don't think that's a class skill for druids, though, so you'll be taking 2 for 1 on
It's
that.
not. I don't think balance or tumble are class skills, but I don't have anything to do with them anyways, with those skill points anyways, so that's an option. Spells, they're pretty basic. Take healing spells. Take spells that are your wolf form spells. Um, I'll probably mention a few in here as I kind of look through my list. Um, those are kind of your big things. Resist energy is kind of an obvious one. And then I kind of just supplement it with other damage spells. So this character has damage spells, which is kind of its only range option while it's in wolf form, is casting spells. Um, you don't have a ton of hit spell points, less even than Jess build, so you're not going to be going around doing a lot of casting offensively. That's not the point of the build. That's why you're a melee. Um, but just some stuff. I will mention Sleet Storm. If you do a lot of soloing, once you get freedom of movement, Sleet Storm can actually be pretty effective
Right.
because you can drop that down. Monsters have trouble getting through it, and you've got freedom of movement, so you can go through it willy nilly. It's a little hard to see through it, but it can be effective, and I use that a lot while I was at lower levels. Once I got I found this to be a pretty effective method as well. The Baiting Bite, Cold Breath, Frostbite, Jaws of Winter, and Snowslide are all wolf form spells. They're all really great. So grab those when you can. I keep Fire Shield as a spell on this character. Normally my characters don't take Fire Shield because you can use scrolls, and they're more or less as just effective, but scrolls are kind of a pain to use in wolf form. You have to go out of wolf form, use it, and then come back in. But so basically, the progression of spells for when you're picking spells here is pick stuff that is wolf form specific, and then pick healing spells and kind of your general cleric spells like freedom of movement, death ward, grab reincarnate, all the regeneration spells, heal spell, and then supplement that with offensive spells that you like. Enveloping Swarm is another spell. It's not wolf form specific, but it does damage to creatures that attack you, so that's a really good one as well.
Now, you have an increased cast time, right, when you're in a wolf?
It's not an increased casting time, it's an increased cooldown time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which there is an enhancement that I'll talk about that. Well, I'll say that for enhancements. Let's see, there's anything else I want to mention in. Oh, so the other thing with spells is you might find that you're going to take healing spells and then swap them out when you get to a higher level version. As you get higher up in levels, because you'll get mass versions or better versions. Vigor does not stack with greater vigor, So if you're using greater vigor, you don't need to have lesser vigor. And then it does stack with regeneration though. Um, Generally speaking, I don't use a wide variety of healing spells. I'm usually using regeneration and mass regeneration. If I need it, I'll also use a mass greater vigor. Um, Otherwise, I'm not doing. Again, this is generally speaking secondary healing. You're not the primary healer in the party, although you can be, depending on what the party is doing and how much healing the party actually needs. Um, but if you need to go more gangbusters on the heals, it's really jump out of your wolf form, use healing scrolls and the spell heal, and then supplement that with regeneration and greater vigor. So those are really kind of the only spells you need, and the mass versions of regeneration and greater vigor are kind of the healing spells you're looking for. So you can kind of phase some of your lower level spells out. All right, enhancements. So for Shin-Tao, the reason why I like going Light Monk is because you can add. There's a couple of multi-selectors that you can add benefits onto your finishing move, your positive finishing move. I really like the remove curse one.
That is a cool one.
Yeah. So because you're going to be, particularly if you think about just as an example, caught in the web, if you're up against Loth and she's cursing everyone, positive, 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 finishing move. All your curses are gone and you can heal.
Yep.
So that's a really strong one. Iron Skin is really nice if you're going to be using Earth stance a lot, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I should mention too with the feats, you can upgrade your Adept of Forms as well by taking feats, which can be a good option as well. The other thing is there's a multi-selector attack in both Shin-Tao and Ninja Spy. The fire is pretty good. I like the Earth and the Air ones personally. Earth is just a lot of damage. Fire reduces fortification and AC, and air reduces the amount of physical damage they do, and they all can stack if you use them a lot. Ninja Spy, again, you can pick one of those, and you get sneak attack die out of this one as well, which is really good. You actually, by taking the third level of Monk, you lose a sneak attack die in the core ability of Nature's Warrior for a wolf, but you can get it back in the Ninja Spy. So you don't really lose too much there. The Henshin tree doesn't really have a lot of great stuff here. It does have a Monk tactical DC boost, which can be helpful. And one action point at the first core gets you 5 spell power and 1% fire critical chance, which is a good bargain if you plan on using more fire. Season's Herald, 1 in Scroll Mastery. We got to get that because your scroll healing is going to be a major function of your healing mode. And then Beguile is a really fun. It's good for attacks as well. If you have enough action points, Efficient Maximize will be good here as well. Don't take Quicken. Maximize is better. It's more effective. You get up to 9 spell points off your Maximize spells, but it does take 9 action points. Nature's Warrior is really the tree that you're going to be going to town in. Vengeful Hunter, the Fatal Harrier attack, Fatal Harrier stance, and Essence of the Shrike are all kind of wolf abilities that make you more effective, give you spell points back, increase your attack speed. There's a double strike action boost, which is great. Flight and then Hide of the Crocodile are great for those oh crap moments when you need a little extra survivability. They really boost that. And then at the top of the tree, Alpha Strike and Celerity. Alpha Strike is a big cleave that does like plus 10 weapon damage. It's a pretty gnarly cleave. I use that pretty much every chance I get, even if there's only one creature in front of me. Celerity is a big boost to Double Strike, and there's no limit to the number of uses. It just has a long cooldown. Natural Adept is the one that reduces your cooldowns, your spell cooldowns while you're in wolf form. I didn't take this. I didn't take it. I didn't find it to be that much of a problem, to be honest. The only time that I found the cooldowns to be problematic are either when I'm buffing, in which I've got all the time in the world, and I don't really care that much, or I need to do faster healing. But if I need to do faster healing, generally I'm not in wolf form. I'm in my humanoid form, throwing scrolls and stuff. So I didn't actually take it. But it's.
I'm gonna re-ask a question from earlier and ask what does Alpha Strike look like when you're in wolf form?
It's basically like a backflip. It's some sort of like backflip, spinny move. as I recall.
Oh,
It's been a
nice.
while
Okay.
since my Druid's been on the back burner for a little while, so I haven't played it. It's not as fresh in my memory.
Okay.
As far as gear goes, hand wraps are your weapons of choice, and we're wearing robes that keeps you centered, so you can use the stances for monk. You don't actually have to do that, but I find the benefits to the stances to be pretty good. You're also going to want to find positive spell power and critical on your gear, not on your weapons, um, because you're going to be offensive. Having that stuff on your gear is going to be better for you. Um, I really like the villager set from the Evening Star for pretty much any type of monk melee build. If you get a 20 when you're in a stance, you get a bonus. For air, if you're in air stance, you get extra double strike. If you're in earth stance, you get you get a version of the shield, the radiant force field shield, artificer shield, which reduces your damage by 25%. So if you for some reason are tanking, which you could do, that's really awesome to have. 25% reduction to all damage incoming. That's great.
That's pretty.
You cut out there. What'd you say?
I said that is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
set.
That's PRR and MRR all in one, and
Yeah,
better.
it's it does take up bracers, belt, and robe, but you can get you can get +3 insightful wisdom on that robe, and there's a lot of other stuff that's really good on that stuff as well. It's not the best that you can get, like they're +7 stats and insightful +2 stats, but it's still pretty good. It's still a good bargain, and I really like the bonuses it gives. Other than that, look for dodge, PRR, and threat reduction. This thing can put out pretty good attack speed, so that's just something to keep in mind. I actually should show some pictures here before I completely forget. So this shows the attack speed that this character gets. This character right now is sitting at 20% double strike and 15% attack speed without haste. So that's some pretty good consideration. Let's see.
Cheers.
Woohoo!
Sorry.
That's okay. This is just a kind of a version of the enhancements. Again, it's worth noting this character is only 2 monk, so I couldn't take the finishing moves in Shintao. But it kind of gives you an idea of some of the stuff that I've taken, and where the tree. And you can definitely see that Nature's Warrior is popular today. Nature's Warrior is definitely the tree that you're gonna hang out in. As far as past lives, I already kind of mentioned monk life is kind of the one that you're gonna want to go into, because that's gonna get you your an extra die step to your attacks, which is good. See, as far as destinies go, Primal Avatar can be really good. I prefer Grand Master because you're essentially part monk, and you need a lot of use out of the Grand Master abilities. And it's flashy. It's more flashy than the Primal Avatar one. Although the Woodwoad form in Primal Avatar can be pretty effective as well. As far as twists, Legendary Tactics out of Legendary Dreadnought is really good. That gives you +6 to your DCs for your attacks. And if you're not in Cocoon, or if you're not in Primal Avatar, Cocoon is really good for your healing, to augment your healing. And if you're not in Grandmaster, there's Double Strike and plus weapon damage in there that's really good to go for there as well. Just some tips for playing this. Wolf form is your base form. If you're doing a lot of more serious healing, you can use an elemental form or no form at all, and use scrolls. Kind of a bonus to this, as a monk, you can attack with scrolls in your hand as an unarmed attack, which can be pretty slick. So even if you're scrolling, you can still punch things in the face. You'll be a little short on spell points, so utilize scrolls as often as you can if you're being a primarily healer. As far as stances go, fire works well, but I don't use it very much. Air is kind of my personal favorite, like the double strike and the attack speed. Losing hit points isn't great, but I'm playing more towards attack speed and offense as defense in this build. Earth is a close second. I don't like that it decreases your speed, and I don't like the threat boost because I don't want more aggro generally. But if you need to grab aggro, the threat boost is nice, and it gives you some PRR, which is
Nice
good.
PRR.
Yeah.
I like that one. Yeah. My monk spends most of his time there.
Yeah, if I'm in water, if I'm in heal mode, I generally switch to water because it gives me extra spell DCs, and spell points and wisdom. So that can be a nice option as well. Or I'll go into earth for the PRR. That's also an option. And then just to kind of close out the druid build section here. Just a note on healing as a druid, it's a very different style of healing than if you're going to be a cleric or a favorite soul or a bard. You heal over time. Almost all your heal spells are heal over time effects. You have to be a little bit more anticipatory than other healers need to be. You can't just react as much, particularly in a raid healing situation. You might need to drop those a regeneration more often before they take damage. Just kind of once you kind of figure out how much damage your tank is taking, you can kind of time your reincarnations and or your regenerations, and then supplement that with heal and heal scrolls to kind of keep them going. But just don't expect like if your tank is down to 25%, don't just toss them a regeneration and expect it to take them up, because they're going to take damage potentially about as fast as that's going to be taking effect. So you need to dump a heal scroll into them and then drop the regeneration or something to that effect. Anything else you want to say about druids before we move on?
Yes, there is. And actually what I want to do is call everybody's attention to a particular forum thread, because the other guest that was supposed to be here today, Ginger Spice, has an amazing druid that is both a caster and a tank. Oh, jeez. Sorry. I've got the loudest house in the world today for some reason. Anyway, he's got a druid.
Ringtones.
Yeah, it's both a caster and a tank, and it is just a freaking amazing druid. And he wrote it up in detail on the forums this week. So I'm trying to show the forum thread here on my screen. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yep.
But I advise anybody who's interested in playing a druid to take a look through this thread, and you're going to pick up a lot of good tips there. I've seen this guy in action, tanking the Draco Lich and all of the red named, what are they called, Kurjars or Battle Ragers,
we call
whatever.
Them boneheads.
Yeah, whatever. He's tanking them all the whole time that we're trying to finish off that raid, and we're going back and forth to the Shadow World, and he's just cool, tanking everything, no big deal. Hey, something new shows up, bring it over to me, I'll take it. And it was completely painless, and it was just an amazing feat to see. So, and this is the build that did it.
Yep. I was hoping to get him on the show, and I thought I had him lined up, but I went across some stuff or something. So, oh well.
Yeah, stuff happens, but I'm sure a link to this forum thread will be available in the show notes. He says, hopefully.
Yes, probably.
Okay.
I might have you send me the link just so I don't have to go hunt for it. So that's our discussion on druids. You can do a lot with the druid. Just kind of close it out and say, druids can be a lot of fun. They can be a very different style of play because the way they work is so much different. Particularly if you're talking about a caster or a healer, they are functionally different in how they play than the other forms of those that are in the game. So it can be a lot of fun. And you can do. This is the first time like I really felt I got somewhere with a melee healing build. Not that I tried very seriously. Actually, I did try pretty seriously with a favorite soul, and it was pretty. I'm just gonna say it didn't work very well. It was a pretty lousy attempt. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But this build, I've had a lot of fun playing, and it's been really effective. And it sounds like you've had a lot of fun with yours as well.
I just think it's interesting. I mean, normally if you want to build a caster, you go build a caster. Normally if you want to build a melee, you build a melee. But the druid lets you do all of these things in one class, which I think is really a fascinating aspect of the class. You can just be the badass meleeer, you can be the badass caster, you can build an actual functioning tank. You can do it all within druid. I mean, that's really incredible.
Yeah, and they are designed to be fairly similar in that regards to bards, but they're still very different in the fact that a druid is a character that is much more versatile, but you can do really well in the things that it does. You can't. I'll make the distinction here. Like a druid, you can really specialize in a couple of different things with the build, whereas a bard, even if you specialize in one, you're really not specializing as much as you would with a druid, but you can dabble a lot better in the other directions, right?
It's special in a bad way, with air quotes. Special. That's how a bard is.
It's not a bad way. if you look at our two builds, right, you're focusing on casting, I'm focusing on melee, and then we're both kind of dabbling in healing.
Uh-huh.
You can do that really well, but neither one of our builds is strong in what the other one is focusing on.
That's correct.
With a bard, you can focus on healing, but still be pretty strong in CC and DPS. You're not as strong in. It's one of those things where like there's three. If you look at it, three things you can do with a bard. it can do, regardless of which one you pick as a bard, you can still do the other two pretty darn well. Whereas this one, you kind of have to pick and choose with a druid, but you can do better in the one that you specialize. If that makes sense. Anyways, let's talk about a survey question. Grimaldius asks, what was your first experience with Dungeons and Dragons? My first experience was in high school. A couple of friends invited me to come and play with them, and it was a lot of fun. And the thing that I most remember is one of the guys' dad was playing with us, and for whatever reason, he was a dwarf carrying around a 10-foot ladder. And he kept asking if this was an appropriate time to use his 10-foot ladder. So, what was your first experience with Dungeons and Dragons, Geoff?
Well, nobody knew what it was before. I experienced it back in 70, I don't know, 70 long time ago, and nobody really understood what the game was. Somebody just said, here, roll these 6 dice and give it a name, and by the way, you're going to play a cleric. And so I'm trying to figure out, and we're starting now, so what's your name? Geoff. Okay. That's your cleric? Oh, that's like a holy guy, right? All right, well, I'll name him Bar Geoff. That sounds vaguely... Bar Jeffrey, there we go. So I named my first character after myself, and it was a cleric that I don't even know what his attributes were, but that's okay because he died right away. And then I learned that the word bar actually means son of, so my next character was also named that. And eventually I got better at naming characters, but it took a while.
Names have always been something that's been a hard thing for me to come up with a name. I'm not that creative. But...
I got better. In fact, I wrote about this recently. I'm wondering if I can. It doesn't matter. I mean, I can find the article, I guess, but nobody cares about the 40 names I've used for characters over the years. But it is sad that my first 2 characters were both named after me.
That's okay. Well, with that, I'll say thanks for everyone who's listening to the show. Thanks for Geoff for joining me here. Appreciate your input on Druids. I think we got both very good builds. You can kind of go either direction, but kind of see how highlights the different things you can do with a Druid. Thanks for the other DDOCast contributors, and thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making D&D and DDO, great games we like to play. And thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you want to be a part of the show or just say hi, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. The closing tip for the week, Thornson says, put your spell point items on before you shrine, buff, and then swap back, which can be very important when you're talking about a druid that doesn't have as many spell points.
I forget that all the time.
I know, so do I. So with that, until next time, our attack rolls and crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to feed the dog.